Here's a thought, but God. That word but in the English language is a disruptive conjunctive. And it's a disruptive conjunctive because it changes or nullifies everything that is said before it. I love you, but, oh man, that's a really nice dress you got on. But, oh, that was such a beautiful rendition. But it starts from that space where everything is obvious and then it begins to dismantle it bit by bit. And so many people struggle with self-esteem and so many people struggle with their sense of worth because no matter how much they grow, no matter how well they do, no matter how much they exceed their expectations, they are surrounded by people with big butts. Yeah, I know you're doing all right, but oh my gosh, yeah, you've really come so far. But oh my gosh, that was so good. But, and they cannot seem to rise beyond or above that. It crushes their spirit. I think maybe that's why we put so many filters on our social media. Maybe that's why we place so many filters across all of our pictures. Because we don't want the but that may be obvious or we think is obvious to be seen. We don't want it to be seen. And then I read the Bible and I discovered that God uses the disruptive conjunctive too when it comes to us as human beings. And I read it through at first and I was like, oh my days. I found it in Ephesians chapter 3. And then I read it through the second time. And it became apparent to me that when I read it through the second time, God doesn't start from a place of praise with us as human beings. He starts with a place of honesty. That's where he starts. He starts from a place of honesty. Jesus doesn't say, yeah, you're all this, you're all that, you're all this with a cherry on top. He actually tells the truth about us as human beings, that we're lost in our own space, that we live without self-control, that we're very selfish. And he goes on and he goes on that we live in our own delusions, that so many of us are just controlled by the power of Satan. Then he declares, but. And when I read that, I thought, hold on. As humans, we look at it from the space of starting at what's good and then devaluing what's good and diminishing us to nothing. God looks at us from the place of what's honest and what's true. And instead of devaluing, he revalues. Yeah, they're lost, but yeah, they're selfish, but yeah, they live in this place of delusion and confusion. But in the economy of God, God starts with what is worse and what is hopeless and revalues it and gives us back a vision of ourselves, of what is best and what was beyond our wildest dreams. Yes, but God. And so let me give you these three essential thoughts coming out of but God. Yeah, number one, when God says but, everything is redeemable. There is no story that is beyond redemption. The impossible has now become possible. And what is needed for transforming lives has begun and will be. If we are willing to stand in a place of honesty about what we see, about what he sees, and we are willing to have that transformed. 2, God will forever look deeper than the immediate things that fill our lives, the immediate sins and habits and all the things that we stress about. He will forever look deeper than that to the grace that is needed, to the power that is needed, to the hope that we can find in him. He goes to our greatest point of need and starts transforming us there. He doesn't start with the outside. He starts from the inside out, not the outside in. And number 3, God didn't become a God of love because we were lost. God has always been a God of love. The fact that we were lost showed us how far he would go, how deep he would love, and how much he would do in order to transform our stories. and the trajectories of our lives. So when people see us where we are now and do their best to devalue us, when people try to look at our best and turn it into our worst, you just remind them, listen, you can't turn it into my worst because God has already taken my worst and revalued it into my best. When people look at you and try to remind you of who you were, even though you stand in this new space, you remind them, yeah, it's true, you know. Wow, yeah, it's really true. But God